Hey all, Taves here, back playing some more Planet Zoo and episode 9 of Tiguidou. Firstly, just before we start this one, I want to say a big thank you to everybody who subscribed. I've just hit the 4K subscriber marks, which is pretty epic. It's been a bit of a rough year and a half for me. A few things going on IRL, so yeah, massively appreciate that. Super proud of that. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you playing at? Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. So yeah, episode 9 of Tiguidou. So as you saw from the title and the thumbnail, this is more backstage gubbins. So focusing on the loading bay and the quarantine in this one. So this sort of fairly, there's quite a bit in this one. This is slightly longer than the last episode. This is all being done. This is a little crate that I made. It's kind of a little prototype crate with a supposed to be like a little lion to go into the loading bay there. So this is all. I'm recording this all just before the North America pack is going live. So you should be seeing this a few days before the North America pack goes live. And so this is all kind of big preparations for new stuff coming in, and you can see a bunch of new buildings going up, a few new areas. I'll show you this all in the real-time tour, obviously, as we go through. But this is all just kind of behind that front gate. So if you remember when we did the car park, there's the toilet block there, and there was a gate, access gate that kind of previously didn't go anywhere. It was always my plan to add in this area. I wanted something that, because we've obviously got that front gate and then kind of nowhere in the actual zoo, or nowhere is kind of accessible to vehicles and things. So I wanted to make that kind of a bit more realistic. So focused on this kind of big back entrance thing. Loads of things going on already. There's a little shed that I'm knocking up here. There's a bunch of things that have got to be added to the workshop collection. So this little shed, and there's a few other bits and pieces. And actually, the previous episode, I missed out all the uploads to the workshop. So if you're watching this at any point and you want to grab anything that you've seen me build here, then it should be in the Steam collection, linked in the description. If it's not, then hit me up on Twitter or something if there's something particularly that you've seen that I haven't uploaded and you want to grab it. More than happy to do that. So I've done a few of these little sheds now out of these pallets. I've started building more out of these pallets because I just think they've got a really cool texture. This is kind of weird. I'm doing this all in the ground. Originally this was going to be a bin store, but it ends up being, I don't think you actually see the finished one until we do the real-time tour, but it ends up being more like a shed, like a keeper's shed, or like a maintenance guy's shed with wheelbarrow and broom and stuff like that in there. So this is all down the side of the building that we added in the last episode. So that is the security room, and the tanks and stuff. The vet tanks are all in there. Adding this little boundary, so you can see a building's gone up there. Adding this little boundary in and putting in some. I sort of played around with the idea that tree has pushed out the fence there. So if that was what I was sort of doing there, is making it look like that barrier fence is damaged. This is all backstage, and we're kind of getting towards. You see that gate on the right there, that goes into the guest areas. Everything on the left-hand side of that gate is all staff only, and so there's like a ramp that goes up to the loading bay. Doing a bit of rock work, so that's what that kind of that slope looks like. The top of the hill is obviously the entrance building. And now we're getting towards, we're right on, you can just about see it, but we're right on the edge of the map here. So I wanted to kind of imply that I had a second way of coming into the zoo. So this was a little bit tricky because I'm really right on the edge of the map. If you remember from episode 1, everything is kind of sloping downhill. It's all based on a really small map, one of the scenario zoos. So I just kind of wanted to suggest that there's a way of getting off the map without doing too much detail into that. So I added in that little guard post, little gate and stuff, putting this retaining wall in there, and then we can see we've got big barrier walls. As usual in these, I'm kind of, what you're seeing are the broad strokes, and obviously there's lots of stuff in between each one of these cuts that are me just kind of doing more. This ended up being, it's quite funny when I end up looking at all the raw footage. It's like hours and hours and hours of speed build footage that ends up down into sort of 15 minutes of edit. But I think that works all right. So I added this little, again, this is right on the edge of the map, so just kind of added this little spot. Just look, it was nice that the sun was hitting that, so I was like, oh, okay, well maybe I'll just make it look like it's got some flowers and things here. So I'd added this. I actually went back to this. Added this. So the concrete bit is the entrance to the loading bay, and then we've got a gate here and a barrier, and you just saw the truck there, which is, I think, Mr. Gomez's, or maybe it's Carlos's. Actually, that Carlos did those amazing trucks. So I wanted to go back and add like a cattle grid. So just as a sort of prevent animals, if there were ever animals in that area, getting out of the gate. And then added an actual barrier. Obviously, I've trapped the security guard stand in there. I think it works all right, because we'll see that obviously more in the tour. But kept it pretty simple with this one. I did a few more details and stuff that you won't see on in the speed build. Yeah, and then it was mostly just kind of looking at little details that I could add here and there. There's a bunch of stuff that goes down that's like little patches in the concrete. One of the really tricky things is always kind of when you do big expanses of concrete to make it look like it's got some imperfections. I know the guys that did there's the little kind of how that's looking so far at this stage. Yeah, the guys that did the modded Africa pack, Nicholas Limerider, did a whole really cool like decal set for scuffing up sort of textures and making things look rougher. Obviously we don't have those in the base game, so you'll see how I'm kind of doing that in a second. So this is a maintenance area, building this little building. This is kind of, I guess like the second part of this video, not sure, third part maybe of this video. Pretty simple. I wanted somewhere that just looked like it was like a maintenance building that the trucks could sit in. There's a bunch of stuff kind of continuing. So we're all of this is off view, so none of this can be viewed by the guests. But I wanted it to still look rich and detailed and stuff. I think I've become a little bit obsessed with the details of Backstage, but zoos are so amazing behind the scenes that I think just to do them justice a bit by spending this sort of time adding these buildings and these details in, it just gives me great pleasure. Hopefully you guys like it as well. Obviously there'll be animals coming soon. So yeah, adding some windows in. I basically built this kind of garage building and then was like, oh, there's no light in here, so what can we do to add some lights in? So just kind of punch some holes in the wall. Now that brick texture down there is all my block set, which is on the workshop. And in fact, I think this whole great big building itself, I should be able to upload it to the workshop. It might be a bit tricky, but hopefully I can. It might have to be a habitat 'cause it's got a lot of pieces. So yeah, I did a little kind of implied, you can see there's a little workshop there. Unfortunately the workshops are only small, so I just kind of wanted to imply a little gate. You see a little gate there and stuff. And then I spent a little bit of time on this, became obsessed with this idea of making an oil barrel, which is a real pain actually, because you see I keep having to click off and delete the shape in order to get the little rings in. But I think that comes out all right. I think that comes out all right again on the workshop with the collection of all the other gubbins. So there's the little pan on that one. So at this stage you can see the trees in the background. That's all going to move in a minute as we get on to the next stage. And then so there's basically, there's a bunch of buildings here. This is primarily going to be the major Backstage area of the zoo. There's going to be a few other places where there's keeper huts and stuff, but this is kind of the major Backstage work, because I'm actually pretty much running all the way down the hill by the time I get to the end of this Backstage area. There'll be a bit more to see in another episode in the future, but yeah, pretty much ends up being that this will serve major parts of the zoo. So the big vet surgery and the stuff like the quarantine, the stuff that you don't have multiple of, all kind of is going to end up in this area. So wanted to create these little kind of backstage holding areas, so little cages and things. Hopefully I can get this up onto the workshop as a set. I don't know if I'll have done it by the time I put this episode out, but it will be coming soon. Just wanted to keep these really simple, little wooden frames, and starting to add some gates in. The idea all just being that these were either kind of backstage habitats, but really sort of simple kind of temporary stuff that you might keep an animal in that's injured or that's recovering or something. There is a larger quarantine area that we get to at the end of the episode. But yeah, adding the mesh pieces are such godsend. They make these sorts of things so much easier. So adding this little gate in, you can see I've started to, quite a nice little way. I've kind of stumbled across it, but by having, you see, you've got different shapes of the mesh there. But the gate is a slightly tighter mesh than the mesh that's around it. So yeah, there's a bunch of these going. Some I end up putting roofs on, putting all these little kind of little areas around, which you see quite often in zoos, actually, backstage areas that just like if there's an animal that might, you might want to kind of stay out of the way of it, because obviously this has got a lot of people walking through it, not necessarily people that are keepers or trained as much to deal with animals. So yeah, then last little, as I said, little details and things. So I started creating this little drain. I suddenly noticed this aircon units actually work really well as like a drain cover. I wanted to put some shelters in these. So some of them have roofed, just corrugated roofs, and then some are not. So yeah, I sort of discovered that these actually work quite well as kind of, I don't know, like dirty marks and water stains and oil spills, and just I tried various different things. You have to let me know what you guys think. Maybe you think these work all right. Some of it work better than others. That large tree trunk works pretty well. This one works really well actually around the oil cans there. It's supposed to look like it's like a spill. Right, so this is the last section of the speed build then. So this is the I guess the larger quarantine area. So this is slightly further away. As you can see, I've moved off the back of that maintenance area now. Put a sort of temporary fence in there, and then I've kind of worked out a little little sort of custom fence. Actually, there ends up being quite a lot more to see on this one. I missed a bit of footage. There's a few places where I've missed a bit of footage, and obviously because I'm trying to keep it to a reasonably sensible length, it's pretty brutal on the cut there, because you can always see that there's a big jump forward in an area. But yeah, I think it kind of works out all right. You guys have to let me know what you think, whether you prefer I guess that's an interesting question. I think whether you prefer the speed build parts of these videos or you prefer the tour parts of these videos. I think a lot of people like to see the process of how you do it. It's just kind of tough to do that with every single piece of my builds, because there's a lot go into them. So just adding a little separation. I was building this with this is supposed to be just a sort of fairly generic quarantine enclosure. So not building this with any particular animal in mind. It ends up having a bear in it, which we'll see in a second. Right, so we are almost at the end of the speed build, guys. I will join you momentarily for the tour. Right, peeps, welcome back to the tour. So we are starting down the side of the entrance building here. So some of this you saw in the last episode. I didn't really talk about this, but I did this kind of like a little bit of a meadowy kind of thing going on there, just a small one. So yeah, that's the building we looked at in the last episode. And if you remember from that previous episode, I said there is a gate here, and that we were not going to take a right turn. So we are now able to take a right turn. So we're going to do this right, come round, back round the other way. So this is obviously, this is all kind of staff access, but this is a slightly more gated off area. So we go through here. We have this little, supposed to look like it's a bit kind of overgrown and rough, but I think it actually ends up looking quite pretty. this little woodland section. So what I've done actually in a few places, because the thing is, it's a little bit difficult to achieve this in game, but these sorts of trees don't tend to generate diversity underneath them. So what you end up with is a lot of kind of you don't tend to get a lot of grass and a lot of undergrowth. What you tend to get more of is just dead stuff. So I tried to do a bit of that with the wood chip texture there, but I think it kind of worked all right. So we come down on this path. I've continued on the power lines as well. So power lines, if you remember, coming over there towards the car park. So they continue down into this section. So if we push on down this little hill, so we have on the left, so just to give you the context of where we are, so that's the car park on the other side of that gate. That's the little toilet block that I built in the, I think maybe episode 2 or 3 or something. And there's that gate. So this is obviously a gate that leads down into the car park for the staff and stuff. So this is supposed to be like a staff, basically this is supposed to be like a staff car park. So they're either supposed to come in the front gate off the main road, or they come in via this back door. So you're going to see some slightly weird things happening with the keepers kind of going in and out of the habitat. So as I said, we have a few little backstage habitats. This one's just got an aardvark chilling in it. Keepers do actually, as you see, they do a bit of a weird thing, but I've sunken the gate down. I couldn't actually get it here, so he'll fall down off there in a second. So yeah, we've got a few of these. Oh, little lag spike. So we've got a couple. One that's open here. Did a little. That's kind of nice little detail. I don't know why this is the sort of thing that I really enjoy doing, but a little bit of gutter that's fallen down there, and I've got a little bit of a drip coming off the roof. Another one there. Oh, up on the roof. So yeah, this is as I said, this is the staff car park. Yeah, so there's one of those kind of the little drain things. I think they look alright, and then a bit of damage. Maybe that should be a bit closer to that, but hey ho. Pretty simple that way. And as I said, I've tried to hide the edge of the map because we're right up against the edge of the map here, and you'll see as we kind of come around this corner what I mean. But so a few bits of rubbish and things down that little ramp there. So if we come around this way, you should probably just about start hearing that guy, but we'll have a look at him in a second. So yeah, so this is as I said, this is the backstage access, I guess. So this is a truck rolling in across the little cattle grid. So we've got our little security guard hanging out there. She's got like a little intercom and a controller. She's got a cup of tea on the go. She's got a newspaper as well because she's bored, chilling out here. And then yeah, so I'll just kind of obviously if you look that way, it doesn't go anywhere. But that's basically about as good as I could do because I'm right up against the boundary there. So if we turn around this way, a few little bits and pieces, and then you'll see. So yeah, I've done a bunch of these spots where I've kind of made it a bit roughed up and a bit, bits and stuff like that. And you can see the stuff I'm walking through here quite happily. So the trick with this, let me have a look if this is a good angle. Yeah, so the trick to doing this is obviously you can't get an animal to go in that sort of small area. And it doesn't look quite right because the lighting's a little bit wrong and stuff, but what I did was actually took a picture or recorded, so you can see the trick is that is all screen is in there, but I deliberately kind of took a recording of this end. Obviously it doesn't make sense from that side, but so that you could see the back of the line. The back of the line wasn't just in a weird out of context place. I guess I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I think it looks all right. It was just an idea. I probably won't do it again, but hey ho. So yeah, here's my kind of maintenance area. As I said, I hope I've managed to get this up on the workshop because I think as a whole blueprint this would be pretty fun. to drop in. So just tried to give it, give it some clutter and things. Got a little tap on the go and some scrap and a few tyres, and I'm actually quite happy with those drums. I think they came out all right. And I actually put in 2 workshops because the workshops only come in the small size. So I put in one here and then actually one for the front window as well. So yeah, I think the roof's all right in there. Looks like it's all supported. I think the as I said, not Mr. Domez, Carlos's vehicles make a big difference. And then so yeah, let's just before we carry on that way. So we have, in fact, let's go this way. We'll go this way and we'll come back. So we have a couple of little parking spots. Another building here. This has actually got the vet surgery in it. Sorry, I'm a bit all over the place trying to work out what the best route to go is. So that's got the vet surgery in, so that's all accessible. Oh, another thing I tried, didn't show this in the speed build, but it's quite funny actually that Nicholas Lone Rider did those decals because I'd already worked on some cracks. So yeah, I was just really desperately trying to break up the kind of uniformity of that of the concrete there. So we've got a wolf hanging out in this one, and then we've got that's slightly larger, and actually quite like that one because it sits. You can see there's like a little cage bit round the window there as well. Got some manky food in there, and then he's right up against another animal, so he's got a little thing so he can't see the other animal there. And then this one's got staff room, keeper hut. I'm not going to go in there, but there's another room in there. I think there's just actually the trade centre in there, and there will be a little bit more detailing to come inside that, I think. And then that goes back onto that main path. We'll come round that way in a second. We're actually going to go this way though. So if we head down the side, of this maintenance area. So this ramp goes into. So this is basically supposed to be vehicle access into the rest of the zoo. So the ramp goes down. It's quite steep. I think that's probably all right. It's not too bad. And then we come on down here again, a bit more clutter. And so this is supposed to be, I guess, large quarantine. I did actually change this a bit from the speed build. So in the speed build I had the habitat gate here, and I just kind of decided I didn't like it. And they always, because they're so small, they always look kind of annoying. Because obviously you couldn't get a bear in and out of that door. So I put a double gate in. Which I think I borrowed from the wolf habitat. Yeah, I did have previously had that on the wolf habitat. And then I actually hid the actual quarantine building is sunk down in the floor over there. And so the keeper goes into the habitat through this route, but also goes, if they want to go to the quarantine, they go down through there as well. So there's a path going off this way. Which some future bits and some future plans. Again, supposed to be that it's kind of road accessible, or you can actually just see the top of the quarantine there, but that will all get hidden away. Yeah, because the quarantine is one of those buildings that's kind of just pointless, and obviously it's 4 metre high, but you've got to have it. So, and then that's supposed to be like a little gate system for opening and closing that. As I said, it's a generic habitat, not supposed to be a long-term habitat. He's not supposed to be in there for very long. Obviously, why it's pretty sad looking in there. So the last little bit to see. So just so you see this all in context. So I've done a little bit of landscaping and stuff here. I think there's an element of this that's pretty unrealistic because this is all on this kind of huge, great big concrete foundation, and then the land is like lowered down. It's probably all a bit unrealistic, but hey ho. So if we push on through this big double gate, so as I said, this is the driving access into the rest of the zoo. And I previously had this open to guests. It's supposed to be wheelchair access, and I think it will probably still be kind of wheelchair access, although I might figure out some other way of doing that. So that's the back of the aardvark and the meerkat habitat. and we'll obviously be progressing down the hill that way. So putting this little, what's that, sort of supposed to be like a 5-bar gate, but yeah, so that's obviously you can see the guests coming up down there, going nowhere at the moment. And then if we come up this hill, this needs some work still. So we come up this hill, you'll see where we are back at that. Back at the gate we went through, so the keeper's coming out of there. And then yeah, last thing to see I guess is just this little shed. So this was the final piece of the puzzle. I think I'm going to have a few of these kind of dotted around everywhere. It's a shame these wheelbarrows are so huge, but I think it kind of works all right. So let's have a look at all of that in context to everything. So yeah, car park, power lines going over that way. I probably should have some more of those. They probably should go off into the rest of the zoo, but I can work on that later. So it's actually quite a big, I guess it's quite a big addition really. Quite a big addition to what we already had. And then yeah, as I said in the speed build, it's kind of going to progress the rest of the way down to Seal Beach. You know, Seal Beach all needs probably a bit of a rework and may well end up being sea lions. I don't know, not sure yet. So yeah, that's that one, guys. Episode 9 done. As I said, there will be a bunch of new stuff coming for this with the North America DLC. So do not forget to like and subscribe if you want to see the next episode. My name is Toves. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.